Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Issei. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei is son of Sparda and Eva? Part 9. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Insert Devil May Cry Ostflock off Griffin. The battle started as Suzaku sent fire strikes from his wings at Issei and Rias, who ran to the side and fired at the stray devil. The firebird cried out in fury as it flew around, setting fire to anything it passed, as the two Nephilim chased after it. You know the good thing about this pocket dimension? Issei asked as Rias looked. We can go all out without worry of collateral damage and causing a major scene. Rias asked as Issei smirked. Bingo. Issei called before he ducked under Suzaku, who landed and tried to peck at Issei. Issei then had an idea as he was behind Suzaku as Rias drew the stray devil's attention. Don't you want some of me, bird brain? Rias taunted as Suzaku growled. Regardless of you being of both the Gremory and Bale families, I will exterminate any of those related to the Sparda bloodline, even the servants. Suzaku roared out as he flew up and dive-bombed Rias, who then dodged at the last possible second, engaging Witch Time. The slow. Rias taunted as Witch Time began. Rias 10 began a full-on assault on Suzaku before she grabbed Suzaku with Madama Butterfly's arms and threw the firebird devil to the main school building. Soon Witch Time ended as Suzaku went flying to the building, smashing it to bits as Suzaku growled while getting up. I shall not be defeated so easily, especially by a putrid revolting Nephilim. Suzaku roared out as he was clearly lost in his rage. You don't say, man, that kind of hurt my feels. Issei was heard behind Suzaku as the firebird was shocked and looked to see Issei sitting on his back cross-legged as the Nephilim had a fan and was fanning himself a bit. What the fuck? Suzaku called out before he flew up and began trying to force Issei off it. The firebird then roared out as he tried to get Issei off him as Issei cheered and was plain out enjoying himself before Issei flew upward. When Issei came back down, he grabbed Suzaku by the neck with his arms and then threw him to the ground hard, where Rias smirked at him. Once Issei landed, he saw his coat had spots on fire as he saw he may need a new wardrobe for hunts after this raiding game gone south. Wish you would have noticed me sooner, now my coat is all charred. Issei said as he put out the fires on his coat, as now they had scorch marks on them as holes showing it was ruined. Don't worry, you'll join it soon in vengeance for all the comrades your father and his peerage has slain with his 3 swords. Suzaku roared as Issei smirked. Then come and get some. Issei said, clapping his hands together while making a bring it on gesture with a smirk as he then took a stance and had rebellion in a reverse grip as the blade began to glow red with demonic power. Suzaku roared as he charged at Issei airborne as Issei smirked before slashing with a double slash from rebellion, causing Suzaku to get sliced deep and sent tumbling away. That Suzaku Phoenix was my attack called Drive. A nifty trick for someone like me. Issei said as Suzaku roared before he felt fun fire at his face, causing him pain as he looked and saw Rias. Didn't forget me now, did you, big boy? Rias taunted as she learned this much from Issei. Taunt an opponent to make them angry and in turn cause them to make a mistake. Rias then switched to an angelic bullet, and once it hit Suzaku, Rias poured it to him and used Madama Butterfly's fists to punch him away. Rias then switched to his devil bullet and pulled Suzaku towards her, which then used Madama's healed foot to stomp on him hard. Issei then jumped next to Rias and he smirked at her. Wow babe, you improved, told you training with us would pay off. Issei said as Rias nodded. Yes, but this stray is the Phoenix family's founder and first head, he's not an easy foe to face. Rias said as Issei smirked. No worries, we'll just burn him out then. Issei said with a smirk as the two stood side by side. With Kisk and Sona. You were right, Kisk, from the very start. Biku said as Kisk looked. Yes, no doubt Issei had wrote and dig into Riser and the Phoenix family's history. Though he doesn't give any major concerns or cares, he is a professional when it comes down to getting information on his quarry. Kisk said as Sona looked just as Kisk stood up. Keep broadcasting this, even though I already know the outcome, the rest of Inferno does not. Kisk said as he grabbed the Yamato. Where are you going? Sona asked as Arthur looked. Before we got word of this raiding game, Lord Kisk was on his way to the island called Fortuna. Arthur said as Kuroko smiled. I heard of it myself, it's a place that has stories of Sparda. One chief among them was that Sparda once ruled and protected Fortuna as its feudal lord. Rainer said as LaFay nodded. Yeah, the people there take these legends as truth and worship him. LaFay said as Donasik smirked. They worship a devil just like a god, how interesting. Donasik said as Kisk sighed. It matters not to me if information exists there of the prize I seek, I shall investigate it then. Kisk said as Kalwerner said. I see, so shall we be taking a portal? Kalwerner said as Kisk looked. Sorry, it would draw too much attention, especially with this congregation's protectors, the Order of the Sword. So we need to go with an old-fashioned means of access. We'll travel by jet for now, and then we'll take a ferry there. Kisk said as Biku nodded. Fine, let's go, but I better get a recording of the fight's end. Miltel called as she was too invested in the fight. Kisk silently took his leave, followed by his brood, as he had a call to make and a plane to catch for his and his brood's trip to Fortuna. Back with Issei and Rias versus Suzaku. Issei and Rias were firing at Suzaku as Issei ran toward Suzaku before running up his back and with Eric's punch down on the stray devil. Rias followed up with a wicked weave attack that was then accompanied by a sword strike from her as the katana weapon was dealing major damage to Suzaku. Rias then came with a wicked weave kick accompanied by gunshots of Elven Knights as Rias then jumped back as Issei smirked at Rias. "She is so hot right now," Issei said as Rias was enjoying this battle big time. "Hey Issei, his wings are sort of a problem for us," Rias called as to Issei, surprised he saw Suzaku had arms under his wings as he remembered how he set things on fire and how he would need to grab stuff at times. "Wanna tear them of?" Issei asked as Rias smiled. "Hell yeah," Rias called as she then decided to go for another infernal summoning. Issei charged forward and punched down on Suzaku with Eric's, causing him pain as Rias was ready with her attack. He asked a SAPIADPH. Rias invoked an ancient Anachian while doing a sort of sexual dance to help as soon her hair moved once again as it entered a portal and from it the demon known as Phantasmarania, the Twister of Flame, and Stray Devil, who had been known for his curiosity but had given in easily to bribes from his master's enemies before being discovered. It is a spider-like devil, but its primary power was magma, and such as the devil roared at Suzaku ready to strike. Suzaku saw this and freaked out before spreading his wings to attempt an escape, but Rias was already upon him as she then used Madama's foot to kick the stray devil down before summoning Madama's arms and grabbing Suzaku's wings. The devil roared as Rias then began guiding it to her newest pet as the stray spider devil waited in anticipation. Suzaku tried to escape, but a firm punch from Rias made him a bit more obedient. Soon Phantasmarania was right before Suzaku as it then clawed at Suzaku before biting down on Suzaku's neck, giving him a dose of infernal phantom spider's poison. Being a phoenix, he should recover no problem, but this poison was meant to cause him pain as he regenerates as Suzaku screamed out in anguish of the pain he was in. Rias then went above and beyond as she used Madama Butterfly to tear off Suzaku's wings, causing his blood both untouched and poison to spew out as Rias smiled sadistically at this. Rias soon called off her spider, returning it to limbo before she smirked at Suzaku as Issei walked up next to her. "Let's finish this bird off, Issei. This entire fight and seeing Riser and Suzaku suffer like that made me quite hot and bothered," Rias said as Issei smirked as he held Ebony and Ivory. "Yeah, let's. Want to do the honors?" Issei asked as he pointed Ebony and Ivory at the weakened Suzaku. "Let's dance, boys," Rias said as the climax of this rating game has arrived. "And Ost, insert innocent of D by trip." Rias then slid her leg across the ground, getting red before she and Issei charged at Suzaku. The two then send a punch at Suzaku, with Issei using Eric's and Rias using her wicked weave. Suzaku was sent back, but Issei and Rias then came in with a kick, with Issei using his own brute force and Rias using her wicked weave once more, knocking Suzaku back to the wall as Riser and his remaining peerage members saw this as with Devil May Cry. "Incredible," Kiba said as Kata smirked. "They're so strong," Asia said as she saw how the two had taken control of the situation and made it into a major victory. "That's our boss man for you, always going over the top," Murayama said as Kata sighed. "And it looks like he's gotten Rias doing it now," Kata said as Aika smiled at this. "This is so hot though. Issei and Rias are a practical power couple here, both figuratively and literally," Aika said as she saw this. Issei then pulled out Ebony and Ivory as he spun them in his hand, while Rias pulled out her Elven Knights as well. The two stood back, pointing Ivory and the Elven Knight at Suzaku as Issei and Rias smirked at each other. "Thinking of a one-liner to end this shit?" Issei asked as he looked to Rias, who smiled. "Yeah, and I think you know what it is," Issei said as Suzaku was worried. "Don't do it," Suzaku cried out. Rias glared at him. "You have no right to talk after how far your family has fallen, how you dare use your own bloodline to ensure your own lifespan, and most of all, going as far as to help your descendants win rating games by granting them power that wasn't their own to begin with," Rias called as she glared at Suzaku. "For that, your punishment in tarnishing the very reason of the rating games and your insults to both the houses of Sparda, Gremory, and Eva is worthy not only of Inferno's wrath but the full fury of Paradiso's light of judgment and limbo," Rias said as she glared at Suzaku. "Ready, babe?" Issei asked as Rias smiled. "Of course, Issei," Rias said as Suzaku was now worried. "Have mercy," Suzaku begged as he had worked along for this. But he respected the strength of the two, so at least he will have the pleasure of being ended by strong opponents. The two then did a small spin around each other before Rias was on her knee and with her left leg spread far to the side, while Issei held Ebony and Ivory in his hand sideways over each other, much like how Rias was holding the Elven Knights in her hand. "Jackpot," they both called before firing at Suzaku. The 4 bullets curved around each other as they were filled with the power of Sparda, Eva, and the Bale clan's power of destruction as the bullets then hit Suzaku in his torso, creating a huge hole in it as Suzaku screamed out in pain as he fell to the ground barely alive. And Rias and Issei walked over to Suzaku as the stray devil struggled to get up. "You two are extremely strong," Suzaku said as Riser and Ravel with Riser's queen arrived, as did the remaining members of Devil May Cry for the raiding game. "So you are Riser's grandfather?" Riser said arrogantly as he quickly shied away from Rias and Issei, fearing the Nephilim and dragon couple. "Yes, and you, my pathetic excuse for a descendant, are an insult to every phoenix before you," Suzaku lectured as he glared at Riser, who was shocked as with Ravel in reaction. "Though I am considered a stray, I am still the Phoenix family head and founder, and thus I shall make an important decision here. Riser Phoenix, I hereby nullify your engagement to Rias Gremory as I respect her strength, but most of all I find you are unworthy of her hand," Suzaku said as Riser could already tell the marriage contract was being burned to ashes as with its copies. "Next, my dear granddaughter Ravel." Suzaku began catching Ravel's attention. "The Phoenix family, due to Riser's actions, have insulted 3 households in one day, the Gremory, the Spardas, and the Eva household in Paradiso, thus I feel it's prudent that we repent and answer for the insult we gave them," Suzaku said as he then looked to Issei. "Son of Sparda, I am offering you Ravel Phoenix as a servant of your brood as penance for my impudent, foolish and disgraceful grandson's actions this day. My only request is that she be treated well under your employ and given a chance to build a new Phoenix household for the Nephilim faction when it is revived," Suzaku requested as Issei smirked. "No problem, I don't see any argument, but I do need her to pull her own weight also when it comes down to it," Issei said as Suzaku nodded. "Very well then, that term is acceptable here," Suzaku said as he looked to Ravel. "Repent what your disgraced brother has done, Ravel, otherwise the Phoenix family will be doomed to destruction," Suzaku said as Ravel nodded. "Don't worry lady, the others will fill you in on how things work in my brood," Issei said as Ravel nodded shyly. "Now for you, Ms. Gremory, I recognize your strength and beauty as something superior, thus as the final penance I shall offer you my soul to use as you see fit. Do you accept?" Suzaku asked as Rias looked. "Very well, if you are going so far to repent for the Phoenix family's mistakes," Rias said, acting her part as a Gremory. "Very well then, Rias Gremory, you have surpassed my abilities, take my soul and go forth, you have my blessings," Suzaku said as he struggled to stand up and then he roared out his bird-like call as his body glowed and then turned to a crimson sphere. Insert Devil May Cry 4 Ost. Lucifer get. The sphere flew towards Rias to her left hand and soon in it was a collapsible demonic phoenix-based bow as Rias looked and saw it unfurl as she saw the 2 sides of it formed phoenix wings as she then split it in 2, revealing they can double as blades. Issei then gestured for Rias to go ahead as he was gesturing more towards the now worried Riser as Rias then smirked a bit. Revenge in Rias' opinion was a dish best served cold or in this case infernal flame hot. Rias then jumped up and pulled the energy string on the bow, creating an arrow of fire which she then released at Riser, who quickly dodged the attack. Rias fired more arrows in a way that she was doing an elegant samba, with her movements being arousing in certain aspects at Riser, as he kept trying to dodge and avoid the attack in any way he can, but Rias was keeping him from running off too far as the ground seemed to be getting an image on it. Rias then turned her bow into its twin sword form as she also noticed the bow form had a phoenix head that formed into a sort of scope and arrow launcher while she slashed flame slashes at Riser, who saw this was his own power being used against him. Riser soon fell on his rear as Rias fired arrows around him before firing the last one between his legs close to his crotch as he looked ready to whiz himself. Rias smirked at her art as it formed into a large heart with Riser at the center where a target was. Rias then elegantly and femininely snapped her fingers, causing the arrows to all blow up in the heart form, creating a heart on the ground. Rias then held a rose in her hand before throwing it to the last arrows, where Riser was as they then blew up with Riser in them, causing him to cry out in pain. And once the smoke cleared, Rias smiled as she saw Riser now without Suzaku was weakened, especially from the battle before as Rias smirked. That was too easy. Rias taunted as Riser merely breathed in pain as Issei smirked. Well then, Ravel, looks like I have my second Quicksilver, Issei said as soon Graphia was heard. Due to unforeseen circumstances and Riser's victories coming into question, victory shall be given to Team Devil May Cry, Graphia said as Issei smirked. Scene break that night office building. How you guys doing? Issei asked as he stretched a bit while Ravel was now in the office with them as she was still in her noble dress. Well, other than sore I live, Kaneko said as she was all healed up. I can't believe brother was cheating in all those raiding games, Ravel said as she couldn't believe it. Yeah, he may not have known, but he should have realized his victories were very unnatural, even with his immortal flames, Issei said as he stretched a bit. Hey Issei, hurry up will you, we need to head down to Inferno, Rias said as Issei looked. How come? Issei asked as Rias sighed. Simply put it, my father and brother decided to host a congratulations party and my father had an announcement to make there, and at the same time Phineas, the trustee for your fortune, is going to be giving you your inheritance. Riaz said as Issei sighed. Oh joy, okay you guys go on ahead, I'll meet you all there. Issei said as Riaz looked. Okay then, Aika, Asia, Murayama and Cadis, I have some dress that should fit you, and if now maybe Ravel should have something. Riaz said as Ravel was currently looking at her new Nephilim shard, which was a bright gold color, as she was officially the first Nephilim from the Phoenix family. I'm going to need some new gear. Issei said as the girls left, as he went to the back room and opened a small locker spot as he began to look through it for his newest set of gear as he smirked at what he wanted. Perfect. Issei said as he grabbed the article of clothing and went to get ready. Scene breakdown in Inferno Gremory party. Riaz and her peerage and Issei's brood were now at the Gremory household as Murayama, Cadis, and Aika were having a blast drinking like crazy as Aika approached a good-looking noble and measured his cock simply by looking at him. Asia stuck close to Riaz, but Ravel seemed to be sticking even closer as Riaz can hear them. The devils, they were all whispering about them, the Nephilim. Some of the whispers were in good nature, hoping them all the best and to see a revived Nephilim faction, but the pureblood supporters from the Phoenix family and their close allies were sending them death glares, wishing to see them go extinct all over again. They were even bad-mouthing Sparda behind their backs as Riaz saw they were calling Ravel a traitor to her blood. Riaz saw these devils were die-hard supporters of the original four Satan's power base and such, but were more Sparda haters than anything. In fact, all those glares even made Riaz nervous of this as she looked for her family. Do not fret, young Nephilim. Came a new voice as Riaz looked and saw Phineas with his cybernetic implant walking to them with his walking stick. They fear the formidable power you now possess, knowing the Nephilim were basic God and Satan killers. Phineas said as Riaz was nervous as the man was a prophet and most of all Sparda's advisor and at times confidant. Thank you, but it will take a long time for the Nephilim faction to revive to at least be at the state the devil faction is currently in. Riaz said as Phineas nodded. Yes, but it will be a time well spent, but be warned, troubled times are ahead, be wary of them. Phineas said as Riaz nodded. Well then I must be off, Sirzich, and your father will need me soon. Phineas said with a grandfather-like chuckle before he left to find the mentioned people. I feel like this is going to be a normal thing with visits to Inferno now. Kiba said as they were all dressed in suits and dresses. No kidding. Kaneko said as she looked around. Hey, has anyone seen the man of the hour? Came a voice as people looked. I mean, the lady of the hour is here, but where's Lord Sparda? Came the same devil as soon they got their answer. The doors were kicked down hard enough to be sent flying as from them was Issei in black pants with red at the edges, a red duster with a grey shirt under it with his guns holsters on his pants as he walked in like a boss. Sure, Issei was late and broke some very expensive doors, but this is how he did things, he makes an entrance. Hey, the party started. Issei called as he walked in wearing red-lensed sunglasses. Issei. Riaz called out in a scolding manner as Issei shrugged it off. So this is Inferno high-class society, huh? Issei said, grabbing a drink from a passing server with a spin. Man, you guys need some rock music. Issei said as he walked to his brood and Riaz peerage. Way to go, Issei, you have us a bad image. Ravel said as the new Quicksilver of the brood wanted to strangle this buffoon. Welcome to my world, Ravel. Riaz said as she felt the same as how Ravel was pissed, obviously. Hey, I think we already made a very good impression in the rating game. Issei said as he stretched a bit. By the way, I had to check a few things with Rodin and he confirmed to me that your Riaz are close to leveling up right now. Issei said as Riaz was surprised. Wait, what? Riaz asked as Issei smirked. Don't worry, getting to high class takes a long time and mid class still takes time, but if a big job or two comes in, well, Riaz, you'll go from low class Nephilim to mid class Nephilim. Issei said as Riaz was surprised. Wait, so after a few major jobs I get promoted? Riaz asked as Issei smirked at Riaz's surprised and stupefied face. Well, since you did all this during an unofficial rating game and did 2 infernal summonings, in my opinion you're worthy of the mid-rank. Issei said as he sat down on a random chair. Now if only this joint had some strippers I can go for a free lap dance about now. Issei said as Cadis then threw a toothpick at Issei, where it stabbed into him, causing him to yelp. Kidding, Cadis. Issei called as he got the toothpick out of him. Well, that's not fair, it took me months to get to mid-class. Murayama said as Ravel looked. Well, she did pull off some incredible feats, so I believe it may be well deserved. Ravel said as she was drinking some infernal wine. Yeah, anyway, any clue what the announcement is about? Issei asked as Riaz sighed. Don't know, but knowing my father, probably something with my interests in mind. Riaz said as Issei smirked. Anyway, who's up for ditching this party and going to a pizza parlor? At least there we'll get a good time. Issei said as this party blows for him. Wait, I don't think we should. Ravel said as she didn't want to embarrass her family, but she was basically told by her family's founder to pay penance for her elder brother's fuck-up. Which reminds her after meeting Rodin, she learned that since the Quicksilver Shard was given to her, her brother lost a bishop and now has to seek out a new one if he wishes to participate in any future raiding games. Hey, don't worry, no one will notice. Issei said before things started to go silent as soon as Issei saw Phineas and Lord Grimmery enter the room from up top. Thank you all for arriving here. Now originally Riser had planned this party as a victory party as well as his engagement party. Though after what we all witnessed in the raiding game we can see why he didn't show his face here. Lord Grimmery said as Phineas cleared his throat. Now then, as you all may know, I was entrusted by Sparda himself with his fortune and his household's power and secrets as a trustee. Now he divided his considerable wealth between two heirs, his twin sons to be exact. Phineas said as everyone remembered Issei's grand entrance earlier, so they know who he was talking about. Now this young man has made quite a name for himself in chaos as a stray devil and angel hunter and has saved the lives of a few people here with us today. In fact, if it was not for this young man then Ria's Grimmery would have died long ago. Phineas said as he then moved his hand to the cybernetic part of his head and shined a light upon Issei, who was in the middle of eating a lobster leg. Now then, Lord Sparda, will you step up here? Phineas said as Issei looked. Let me finish this. Issei said as he quickly finished the lobster tail and then used his angel pull to arrive at the stairway and slid on the ground when he landed. Yo. Issei said with a wave and a cocky smirk as Surzich then spoke. Now then, seeing as young Issei Hyoudou here is the Red Dragon Emperor, you should all know how powerful he can be as a Nephilim with a long anus. Surzich said as people knew that much. But right now we should celebrate the revival of a long-thought extinct household and with it a long-thought extinct race, House Sparda and the Nephilim. Surzich said as Issei waved at them. Yes, but after some deep discussions with Phineas here before handing Issei's half of Sparda's fortune, we decided that an engagement for Rias will happen, just not with Riser. Lord Grimmery said as Rias did a spit take from her own drink as she was coughing and was about to object right then and there. But it will be upon different terms. Lord Grimmery said as Rias was surprised. Now I shall confess I should have listened to my daughter at first, and the fact that Issei here had saved her life by reviving her as a Nephilim ruined any chances of her birthing a pure-blood devil, which I shall confess was just the pride in me there. But now she has the chance to revive House Sparda and the Nephilim, but after hearing about Issei, I feel he would want her to do so on her own terms. Lord Grimmery said before Phineas spoke up. Thus we had created a provisional marriage contract, the marriage will happen, but after Issei and Rias are given time to better know each other and are both given the chance to call it off, but only after they feel they have both learned enough about each other. Lord Grimmery said as Issei was oddly silent and when Rias looked she saw Issei was now basically caught off guard by this whole marriage thing. I can't believe they're doing this again. Rias growled before Keno spoke. Yeah, but it's a major improvement from Riser and you can call it off when you want to. It's a good deal in my book, a basic win-win situation. Akeno said as Rias couldn't help but agree with that comment. Rias, will you please step up? Lord Grimmery said as Rias nodded as she soon stood next to Issei. Now then, here are the winners of the raiding game and the soon-to-be leaders of the Nephilim faction. Lord Grimmery said as Issei saw it was basically the Nephilim are back and any stray who wrecks the Trinity will answer to them. I'm sure Sparda would be joyful for you keeping your promise, father. Surzich said as that surprised the two. He died, yes, but I will always be a man of my word, especially to friends like Sparda. Lord Grimmery said as Phineas nodded. Now then, let us all enjoy the party for the time being. Phineas said as everyone nodded. Scene break after the party Hyoudou residence. Oh, I see. Mrs. Hyoudou said as standing before her was Rias, who was now basically moving in with Ravel holding her own bags as she then sighed. Okay then, rule 1, I don't allow any freeloading and if you're moving in with my adopted son then you have to each pitch in some way, understand? Mrs. Hyoudou said as Nevan walked by holding a planner of sorts. Oh good, that means we got march or monkeys. Nevan said as she walked by as Maria passed by her lover. I suppose the more the merrier. Maria said as she looked to Rias. But knowing Issei Sama's track record, I wouldn't be surprised to an orgy in his room. Maria said as Mrs. Hyoudou quickly snapped her fingers remembering something. Oh, which brings us to the next rule. If any of you go for some hanky-panky then I need a notice and the room you do it in to be locked and silenced, we don't need to hear if you guys are screamers. Mrs. Hyoudou said as Rias, Asia and Ravel all blushed as Issei smirked. Don't worry, you'll be the first to know with Nevan running around here. Issei said pointing to the succubus vampire devil of the succubus household in Inferno. Oh, and major point I need to get across is this household is a safe haven for beings from other factions who left and need a place to hide, so if any of you spill the beans about this, not only will you be out of here, but I'll forbid the accused party from ever returning and have Rodin sort you out. Mrs. Hyoudou said as the three girls nodded. Okay then, enjoy my home is now your home. She said with a kind smile as Issei yawned. Well, I'm going to bed then. Issei said as he headed to his room as it's been a long day for everyone involved. Yeah, I agree with you there. Rias said as she went up the stairs. Same here, come on Ravels and you can sleep in my room tonight till we can find you a better room. Asia said as Ravel nodded. Yeah sure. Ravel said as she followed her fellow Quicksilver. Meanwhile at the Vatican, the sword was resting on a stand of sorts as it was being monitored closely. This was a holy sword as the man looking upon it was going through the last pieces of things he will need to transfer it. Kuo Town, a devil hotspot, a perfect place to further my research and use Caliburn to recreate Excalibur. The man said, giving a sickening laugh as nearby were the corpses of the dead victims, as this was the Holy Sword project as it was pulled years ago. Nearby outside the warehouse was a girl observing it as she was dressed in the uniform of the priests of the Vatican, but around her neck was an orange Nephilim shard, as on her back was a large sword called Excalibur Mimic. The sword though was one of 7 swords her boss had called cheap-ass knockoffs of the real deal, as she knew why they were knockoff. The real Excalibur was wielded by her master's mother as the sword was hers and passed down between the heads of her house in Paradiso. Of course she had to play the role of a devoted follower of God and pulled it off splendidly. She watched the man work as she smirked at seeing the singing sword Caliburn, which was robbed from the grave of another as she was close. But she looked around and cursed seeing sensors around the place. If she got any closer it will detect her in a heartbeat as she looked. Soon Rodin appeared behind her with an eye and Rudra as the girl looked. Well Arena? Rodin asked as Arena got up and smirked. Yeah I found it. Bad news is I can't get to it, good news is I don't have to. If Issei can't come to the sword easily then Caliburn will come to him. Irina said as she confirmed the Holy Sword project remnants will be moving to Kuo City in Japan now. Oh that's good, that very good. And I said as Rudra nodded. Fine you got it, but keep the Excalibur cores when all is said and done, I want to work with them a bit see if I can make some angel arms out of them. Rodin said as Irina nodded. You got it. Irina said as luckily for her Excalibur Mimic was her second sword. Her real sword was Vendetta, a devil's arm she was able to grab when she worked closely with Issei years ago, before she came here to the Vatican in Romania to hunt down Caliburn's location. Rodin and the twin devils then vanished as Irina looked again and saw the scene hadn't changed. Soon Issei-chan I'll be back and I can whip the new girls into shape. Irina said as she smirked. So Murayama and Kadasir senpai will be home soon. She said as she got up and put her cloak back on and left. But Phineas and the mouse. Phineas arrived before the 4 Satans as this meeting was secret as Surzich knew why. I'm sorry for summoning you all abruptly, but I feel this is a matter we must discuss immediately. Phineas said as Surzich looked. Well old friend please speak. Surzich said as Phineas looked. As you know we with Sparda's aid had tricked all of Inferno to believe a lie was truth. But now the lie is returning to show the truth. Phineas said as he walked to the center of the room which held the mark of the 4 Satans. As Surzich and the rest of you may know Sheba Leviathan had conspired with Sparda to put you 4 into power and we all told the lie of the 4 Satans being dead. We know Sheba faked her death and left a limbo to act as its queen and keep the more powerful and ancient stray devils at bay. Phineas said walking to the side of the room which showed the image of Mundus Lucifer as even his painting showed his ego and power, believing himself a god and expecting his subjects to fear him like a divine being. Mundus Lucifer, Argisax Beelzebub and Abigail Astaroth will each break out of their seals and no doubt use stray devils to reassert themselves as the true leaders of Inferno. Phineas explained as he looked to the 4 shocked Satans as this was very troubling. The lie they told was that Sparda and Drake's previous partner slayed the Satans utilizing the Red Dragon Emperor as his pawn, though the truth of the matter was Sparda couldn't do it because Mundus struck down the Red Dragon before he could use his full power and in turn Sparda had to seal away the 4 with a mass amount of his power and as he and his peerage escaped Inferno used his blood and the blood of a mortal priestess to seal away Mundus's slave-built conduit of evil the Temeni grew to forever keep the 2 realities separate through limbo. This is bad then if they all return then we'll be looking at another great war one that will completely destroy the Trinity. Surzich said as Serapho looked. But how can we stop them, we barely did it before and got real lucky because of Sparda, now that Sparda is gone, the only hope left is a Longinus. Serapho said before she quickly remembers the events as of late. Wait of course we have about 7 known Nephilim from Issei's group and the 9 Nephilim my baby sister Sona told me about, plus the leaders of both groups have a Longinus gear and are Sparda's sons. Serapho said as Phineas nodded. So this means the sons must finish what the father and mother started and defeat the enemies from both Inferno and Paradiso. Surzich said as Phineas nodded. Precisely but only if they are able to set aside their rivalry for a common goal. Phineas said as Surzich nodded. For now we need to keep close tabs of them. Ria's being engaged to Issei though will help prevent any other devils from trying to make a grab for her spot as Sparda did hold considerable power in Inferno. Surzich said as he rubbed his chin. If Rias can fight off any suitors after Issei for his money and power, we can prevent any anarchy for the time being. Surzich said as Phineas nodded. Now I have told you my prophecy for now I must bid you adieu we have other problems arriving to the new Nephilim faction. Phineas said before he vanished as the four Satans then began to discuss their next move in the even Mundus, Argisax, and Abigail escape their seals. They already know where Mundus has been sealed away. Argisax was tricky since his seal was divided between different artifacts, while Abigail was very difficult since the family who held his seal had vanished. May all of creation help us. Sirzich said as he knew these three devils were extremely powerful, even more so than the new Satans. They would truly need a miracle if they hoped to stand victorious and survive. Hisk and his brood all in cloaks walked down the street of Fortuna as they looked very much like wayward travelers. The reason for this was that they had to be careful seeing as Fortuna was a major supporter of Sparda, as a bit a ways from them black smoke went across the ground. All of you? Kisk began as he looked to his brood. Go on ahead and scout around. Our missions is reconnaissance and information gathering. Any useful information you have will be brought together by the end of the day. Kisk said to his brood who all nodded and one by one flashed out to begin their mission. Insert Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition Ost. Let's just see. Fisk once more began walking towards the city's deeper parts as he smirked with Albion ready to be summoned at a moment's notice. Kisk soon stopped as he looked up to the large cathedral up ahead as he saw it was the home and HQ of the group he deems worthy of his observation. The Order of the Sword Fisk said as he saw the statue of Sparda being built, though making him look human and divine. They worship a demon as a god. Kisk said as soon stray devils showed up, landing before him roaring at him as they were scarecrow-like in origin with blades as their arms and legs. Fisk glared at them as he moved his cloak with a wind, revealing the Yamato ready for use as he glared at the demons before moving his thumb to edge the Yamato out. The stray demon soon tried to sneak attack Kisk, unaware that it was already dead as Kisk soon vanished as the sound of sword slashes was heard as a moment later Kisk was on the other side of the strays as he now had Albion out but folded up to avoid getting in the way while he was sheathing the Yamato. Once Kisk had the Yamato nearly sheathed, he slammed it in ever so elegantly as the stray devil who tried to sneak attack him soon fell apart to pieces destroyed. Kisk then charged at the strays with Yamato and began slashed at them with his superior speed as these peons were simply annoyances to him. Kisk then threw Yamato's sheath to a stray which it stabbed into said stray as Kisk wasn't done just yet. Kisk then with Yamato in his right hand began slashing through the strays with ease as they each fell before the blade that can cut through even dimensions. Fisk then threw the Yamato like a boomerang as it did the desired act and spun around the air before returning to Kisk, but in his left hand before he sheathed the Yamato into its sheath. As soon all the stray devils fell down dead as Kisk felt his hair was in his eyes, making him look more like Issei. Fisk then sighed before quickly and ever so elegantly slicking his hair back to its original state as Kisk soon felt Albion unfurl of his own will. Kisk, I must inform you, we aren't done fighting just yet. Albion said as Kisk looked up and saw stray devils coming down on him. I will handle this. Kisk said as he then roared out and jumped up as the white dragon Nephilim began slashing through the stray devils with ease with a spin before he returned to the ground on his knee. Kisk slowly sheathed away the Yamato in an elegant almost samurai-like fashion as Albion's sun vanished and Yamato was fully sheathed. Kisk soon began walking to the cathedral as he knew something was up here, something big. Just what are your true intentions? Kisk asked as he walked and glared to the cathedral as the stray devils fell down around him dead as they each blew up releasing red orbs that flew to Kisk to be used for hunting gear later. But as he walked his cloak flew about before it returned to Kisk, who placed it back on with one move of his arm as once again he was dressed like a wandering warrior. Kisk soon met with the locals as they all paid him no mind as Kisk did the same, but soon Kisk passed by a young woman around his age, and though she wears the hood everyone in Fortuna wears, she saw Kisk was off here for some reason and yet he seemed like he belonged her. They both didn't belong here and belonged her like a wind coming and going as it pleases. The girl felt her heartbeat increase as she saw Kisk walk off and vanish into the crowds, wondering why his face seemed oddly familiar. Seen Breikuo Town old school building. You three want to observe us? Riaz asked as she was wearing glasses as standing before her was Ravel, Asia, and Aika. Yeah, I figured if we watch you guys in action we can see if we're doing our job as Nephilim right. Aika said as Ravel looked. I on the other hand need an example of how a Nephilim performs their duties of getting their packs and keeping balance in the Trinity. Ravel said as she looked. Plus Rodin is working on my weapon still, so I can only rely on my phoenix flames and winds to provide protection with the added bonus of angelic power. Ravel said as she tried to look haughty about it. Well, I think it's a good idea, in fact I think you can benefit from this. Riaz is less of a green skin for this unlike you three, so I say go for it, but under two conditions. Issei said as he got up and looked to his fiancée. Condition 1, you don't interfere with the job unless you have to or the situation calls for it. Riaz said as the three agreed to that. Condition 2 is you guys plus Riaz start taking training more seriously because I'm planning a trip for you guys to the Dragon Mountains to undergo some heavy training from the dragons. Issei said as Ravel was wide-eyed. Oh yeah, you had us do the same thing, Issei. Kata said as Murayama nodded as every Nephilim makes the journey to the Dragon Mountains to undergo extreme rigorous training under the dragons themselves. Well, training under dragons, I suppose, since it is a Nephilim required task, I don't see why we can't undergo it. Ria said as it could be good for them all. Okay, then you three will tag along with Murayama, Katis, and Riaz on these jobs, got it? Issei said as Riaz looked. Wait, why not you? Riaz asked as Issei looked. Because I'm waiting for the major jobs, and let's not forget you guys need to promote to high-class Nephilim. Issei said to his provisional fiancé as he still wasn't sold on the whole marriage shit. Okay, point taken. Riaz said as Issei sat on the sofa and relaxed. Okay, then let's go, me first. Murayama said as she smiled. Scene break. Murayama and her job. Murayama appeared through the portal as she arrived to find a kendo gear wearing youth as she smiled as with her were Ravel, Aika, and Asia. Hi there, thank you for summoning me with a Nephilim contract, what do you need? Murayama said as the boy looked. Okay, I know it will sound stupid, but I want you to fight me. He said as Murayama looked. I mean kendo style, see, I'm trying to get major practice in for the kendo team tryouts at my new school when a student got transferred and I really want to make the team. He said as Murayama smiled. Okay, no problem, and for starters you're wearing the gear all wrong. Murayama said, pointing out the obvious as the guy was wide-eyed, no doubt a freshman. Later, the young man was huffing and puffing as he sealed the pact as the girls were surprised with what they had just observed there. Yeah, thanks Murayama-sen, I really owe you, but I need more practice before the tryouts, so can I call you again? He asked as Murayama nodded. Of course, just sign your name here and we'll put you down as a regular for us. Also, if you want, write down your reviews to see if we have any room for improvement. Murayama said his customer service was key here. Alright, thank you. He said as he took the pen and signed. Scene break with Katis. Katis arrived accompanied by Ravel, Asia, and Aika like Murayama had arrived to observe. Before them was a young woman who was exhausted as hell as it was late afternoon as she looked very in need of sleep as nearby was a kid screaming and thrashing shit. Let me guess, your kid is at it again? Katis asked as the woman nodded. Yeah, babysitting long enough for you to rest, right? Katis asked as the woman nodded. Yeah, normally I can handle him, but he's on a rampage. She said as Katis nodded. Leave it to me. Katis said as she went to find the kid. Babysitting? Aika asked as she soon saw why this was needed. The entire bedroom was destroyed by a 5-year-old throwing a temper tantrum as clearly he wanted a sweet without dinner and the woman had ordered dinner to be delivered. 5 hours later, the woman yawned as she found Katis sitting in the now cleaned up room with her son sleeping in bed as the woman looked to the two. I don't know how you do it, but you will make a great mother one day. She said as Aika, Ravel, and Asia were there. Yeah, well, Asia helped, seems your son likes her a lot. He got a scrap knee during his initial tantrum and when he did he went berserk. When Asia here fixed it up he was easier to deal with. Katis said as the woman sat down and cried a bit. Why can't I take care of my own son? She said as it looked like the single mother was ready to break down as Katis sighed. Lady, I don't want to tell you how to parent, but parenting is a job for two, especially for a 5-year-old. He needs his father or a father figure just as much as his mother. Maybe you should try dating, get back out there, you know. Katis said as the woman nodded. Maybe you're right. The woman said as Katis nodded. I am right, plus Asia and I can babysit while you're on your dates, basically everyone wins. Katis said as Asia smiled. Really? The woman asked as she didn't expect them to be willing to help her. Of course, once he's all calmed down he's a little angel. Asia said with a smile as the woman nodded. Alright then, thank you. The woman said as the pact was made and the group took their leave. Scene break with Riaz. Riaz arrived and found herself at Nevan business in chaos as Riaz, Aika, Asia, and Ravel stood before the Bishop of Sparta's peerage. You want me, what Riaz called, already regretting taking the job. It's nothing major, Riaz, I just need you to model for me some nudes so I can post them as ads for my club. Nevan said as her strip club also doubled as a dance club on weekends for the teenagers of Kuo Town. But why me? Riaz demanded as Nevan smiled. Because you're hot. Nevan said as if that was the most obvious answer in the world. Don't worry, I got a few things to hide your identity, in fact the people who see you will just think you a foreign model since you are not a performer here. Nevan said as Riaz's eye twitched. I swear you take more form your succubus origins. Riaz said as Nevan scoffed. After the whole Twilight incident I'd rather take my succubus origins than be classified with those sparkly assholes. Nevan said as she one time found the actors for Edward and gave him the what for. Needless to say he wasn't too thrilled or willing about taking any more vampire roles in the future. Fine, lead me to the room. Riaz said as Nevan smiled. Okay then, follow me. Nevan said as Aika snickered. Not a word of this. Riaz growled as she still had a higher rank than Aika and the brood. Sorry. Asia said as the three followed after Riaz. Later in the photo room, Riaz's first outfit was the hardest as it was the stripper outfit as Nevan told her. It was supposed to be a gift type of outfit to play on the screens to get the guys excited. Riaz of course was wearing a mask as Riaz even had her hair done up a bit and made shorter to better hide. Okay Riaz, whenever you're ready. Nevan said as Riaz glared. I will murder you the minute you become a stray. Riaz said as she knew without Sparda Nevan was possible next to become a stray. That's nice. Nevan teased, not the least bit affected by it. Nevan then started the music as it was a techno-type deal before she began the recording, as Riaz did the routine she was showed. Imagine the dance Bayonetta did in the first game at the ending credit, except without Fly Me to the Moon, and a bit sped up. Riaz did the dance as her body moved naturally with it as she was in front of a green screen, which was the recording was done would be edited as normal. As Riaz did the dance she tried to look sensual and succeeded with it, as her face even mirrored it as Nevan smiled perversely. Nice. Nevan thought as she figured since they were all going to become strays, might as well live it up while they still can. Riaz moved in tune with the music as Ravel was blushing a deep red, while Laika smiled in her perverted sense, as she may have made the perverted trio into a quartet if given the chance. Ravel saw Asia was blushing and shaking before she covered the nun's eyes to keep her from feeling any more nervous. As Riaz danced was done, Nevan recorded it to the end, and soon it was finished as Riaz sighed in relief of this as Nevan smiled. Okay then, time for the nudes and cosplay pictures. Riaz, I set up a set of clothing over in that room. Nevan said, pointing to the open room. Go in there and dress in the labeled clothing okay while I set up here. Nevan said as she began to work her magic. Alright. Riaz said as Nevan was the one who summoned them. Well, at least it's not Nevan asking them to fill in for another girl like how Murayama and Caddis described. Outfit 1. Riaz was in a wedding dress with a veil. Problem was it was a very short dress as Riaz stuck a pose that had her as a happy drive. Okay Riaz, look at me, not the camera. Nevan said as apparently she was a professional photographer as the setup was a sort of wedding reception with a green screen background. Outfit 2. Riaz was now dressed in white lingerie as she was on her rear end with her left leg spread out, showing it had high heels on it, as her right leg was folded up with her arms wrapped around it, as the thong she was wearing didn't help, as her new mask was like the wedding dress before white. I will murder her one day and make it look like an accident. Riaz thought, wondering how Maria and Issei put up with Nevan so much as the woman would have sex at the drop of a pin. Outfit 3. The setup this time was a classroom as Riaz was unable to wear the mask this time around. But she didn't have to as her hair was shortened while she was dressed as the sexy teacher who flirts with her students trying to get into their pants. Riaz had glasses on as her hair made her look very sexy as it screamed sexy teacher right there. I can't believe this is the front lines for these things. Ravel said as Aika smiled and had a nosebleed. I'm so happy to be a Nephilim. Aika said, lost in her own little world. Why must I be doomed to have a partner who's a pervert? Yoryu said as he wondered what cruel god decided to punish him like this. Outfit 4. Riaz was soon in a kimono-like outfit with her bra out as it was purposely undone in a way to be revealing like a maiden awaiting her lord to warm his bed that night. Of course one of the bra cups was lifted to reveal a breast as Riaz once again had the mask on to match the outfit. Welcome Riaz to my old life living with Nevan. Madama said as Riaz could see why Madama would be frustrated with Sparda's bishop. That makes me feel better actually. Riaz thought back to her infernal partner as Riaz was just glad to be the spokesperson and not the performer. Outfit 5. The setup this time around was a household kitchen as Riaz was in a naked apron as she looked to be cooking for her husband as Nevan was so tempted to jump Riaz right now. I wonder if I should go for a taste. Nevan thought as she found Riaz was very much attractive. Riaz of course was covered in cake mix and cooking ingredients as Nevan had to admit Riaz looked like a hot as inferno housewife like that. Outfit 6. Riaz was now dressed as a sexy cop as Riaz looked ready to serve and punish as Aika was trying real hard not to jerk off to this. How many more outfits are left? Riaz asked as this was the 6th outfit already. Don't worry, just a couple more and the pact will be made. Nevan said as Riaz's eye twitched at this. Outfit 7. Riaz was now dressed as French maid as Asia was wondering how Issei lived his life with a pervert like Nevan as the girls each wondered if Nevan would be willing to part with some of those outfits. Riaz herself though was holding a plate as she bowed towards her master as her breasts could easily be seen from above, while if one were to look behind, they could see her thong wasn't helping her hide her decency. Wow, this is oddly enough a turn on. Ravel said as she watched this play out. Outfit 8. Riaz was now dressed as an office lady as she had the glasses in place of the mask again, but this time her hair was done up in a bone as the way she posed had a dildo in her mouth as she sucked upon it. Of course the office lady get up showed her wearing a very tight skirt as her breasts looked ready to pop out but at the same time still looked professional. Riaz was leaning over a desk showing the paperwork and latest information as the papers had bullshit date and Nevan whipped up but the point was Nevan got the design she needed. Okay Riaz, tan 2 more outfits and we'll be done. Nevan said as Madama was wide-eyed. I have a bad feeling about this. Madama said as Riaz couldn't help but agree. Yeah I know. Riaz said to Madama as this wasn't going to end well. Outfit 9. Riaz was wearing silk gloves that went up to her upper arm, while the silk socks allowed her toes to be seen from movement, as Riaz had her arms behind her head with her legs spread. The thing was Ria's breasts were covered in chocolate syrup, while her folds no longer had panties and instead had whipped cream on them. Her breasts' nipples had a cherry on them, while there was also a cherry on Ria's whipped cream panties, as that wasn't the most surprising of all. In Ria's mouth was an unused condom showing she was ready for sex, while around her neck was a bow ribbon, as Riaz was ready to murder Nevin. Riaz then changed positions as she turned to her side and bended forward a bit, showing her ass off, and showed she was in fact not wearing a bra, as there was a cherry and a mound of whipped cream close to her ass. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Ravel asked Nevin as Nevin smiled. "What was your first guess?" Nevin asked as Ravel sighed in frustration. "Okay Riaz, go clean yourself off and we'll head over for our last outfit," Nevin said as Riaz was now officially pissed. Outfit 10. Riaz was now in a coat and high-heeled boots, but that was it as her hands held the coat on either side, revealing her nude body, as Nevin was smiling insanely as she took the pictures. Riaz of course was wearing a wig and sunglasses, but the point was this outfit wasn't even an outfit, just an exhibitionist's getup. Riaz then grabbed her breasts and fondled them for the pictures, while her other hand went to her crotch, as Riaz did a small lick as Nevin took the pictures. "Perfect Riaz, maybe you should be in a Playboy magazine one day," Nevin said as Riaz was about ready to explode in rage. "Or maybe you can become a porn star and work here, you have the body for it," Nevin said with a coy smile as Riaz just about had it. Outside, Riaz was heard roaring in fury, followed by gunshots from elven knights as Ravel, Asia, and Aika were heard trying to calm down the situation, as Riaz had gone berserk as Aika had an idea. Last. Yoryu roared out as it was followed by an explosion as inside was chaos, because Nevin wouldn't shut her mouth when she knew Riaz was really pissed off. Scene break: late afternoon, old school building. "Well, despite Riaz losing her cool against Nevin, we got a whole lot of Nephilim packs and devil pack today," Issei said as he showed the stack. "Yeah, I didn't know Nephilim were jacks of all trades." Aika said as Ravel saw the Nephilim were pretty much multi-skilled. "Yeah, but our primary duty is to keep the Trinity in balance and hunt down any strays we get pointed to. We had to take payment though so we can keep our business running," Issei said as he drank a soda. "Anyway, as you and me got a call from both a Nephilim and devil contract," Issei said as he got up. "It's a major work, so we'll have everyone come along to help out or observe," Issei said as he had his gear ready and took off his red shades. "This should be good," Riaz said as the two headed to the portals to begin teleportation. "While we get to observe Issei and Butchie working side by side again," Asia said as Aika was still reeling from the two and their dual attack on both Riser and Suzaku, which earned Riaz her first devil arm. "Yeah, I mainly guard detail this time around, so this should be fun," Issei said as they were ready to leave. Scene break: museum. Devil May Cry arrived at their destination as Asia looked around confused. Museum, the fact I was called for guard detail may mean something supernatural is involved," Issei said as he looked around. "Though my forte is more the Christian occult," Issei said as he very rarely ever deal with foreign strays. "Good day Grimmery-san," came an elder man's voice as Riaz looked and saw the researcher walk in. "Good day Professor," Riaz greeted as Issei looked. "Yo, you called me here?" Issei asked as the man nodded. "Yes, you were suggested by a man named Morrison who visited here," the professor said as Issei nodded. "Well then, since you summoned two sets means you probably have two requests," Issei said as Riaz nodded. "Yes, we are here to fulfill your requests," Riaz said as she smiled at the middle-aged man. "Oh, it's much appreciated," the man said as Issei smirked. "This is Professor Nishira. He researches ancient civilizations from around the world," Riaz said as Issei got it. "Okay, so gives me a chance to check out Egyptian supernatural stuff for future jobs. Wonder if Ra and his Ankh are here," Issei joked as Riaz sighed. "Sorry about him, respect isn't his strong point," Riaz apologized as Nishira laughed. "Don't worry, I'm just happy he seems interested in learning," Nishira said as Issei smirked. Later, the group arrived in an office of sorts, as in the center of the room was a sarcophagus clearly from Egypt. "Well, this should be interesting," Issei said as Issei saw Asia summon her dragon sprite. "Good start recording Asia, we can use this stuff so Rodin can better equip us," Issei said as Asia nodded. "So we got wires, what's the deal with this bad boy Doc?" Issei asked as he looked to Nishira. "It's a valuable historical artifact we excavated from some ancient ruins," Nishira explained as Asia quickly felt a shiver. "What was that chill?" Asia asked as she was surprised by the coldness. "If I had to guess, a ghost or spirit somehow," Issei said as Issei looked. "So let me guess, Riaz here is going to help you figure this thing out while I provide guard detail in case things go south, right?" Issei asked as when dealing with ancient civilizations and their supernatural stuff, that's a major must. "It's a good call, sir, this coffin is giving off a certain aura," Riaz said as Issei smirked. "Probably some fucktard from way back when who has a score to settle," Issei said as he smirked at the coffin. That's right. The people who have been involved with this have come down with unknown diseases, fell into mysterious accidents, or met misfortune in some way, shape or form. Nishira said as Issei got it. Probably better if we destroy this thing then. No telling what could be waiting inside it. Issei said as he pointed Ebony at it. But a job's a job, so Riaz, this is on you, let's figure this blood stain out, and if we have to put a bullet in its head. Issei said as he was ready for anything. I think we should try and be careful with this. There's no telling what could be inside it. Ravel said as she didn't need this coming back to bite them. So this thing could be curse, well this should be fun. Murayama said as she hasn't seen a cursed object in a while now. Take a look at those hieroglyphs. The professor said as many minus Aika and Asia gasped. I see 2 circles though they look a lot like boobs. Aika said as Kaneko elbowed the trickster. Wait what? I shouldn't think erotica and ancient junk from the past. Aika called out, getting the thoughts out of her head. Let me tell you what it says. Nishira called as everyone looked. This should be good. Issei said, knowing you never read that stuff out loud once translated in many cases. Only a beautiful demon woman with large breasts shall awaken me. Nishira read as Issei smirked. Well, we got about 2 of those right here. Issei said, pointing to the largest pairs in the room, which were Riaz and Akeno, causing Kaneko to kick the Nephilim. Hey easy there kitty, I was just playing. Issei said as Kaneko glared. Pervert. Kaneko said as Issei simply shrugged. Okay, so we use either Riaz or Akeno to wake this lazy bag of bones up and stop this curse at the source. Sound strategy. Hell, I bet you even Aika here can finish him off without breaking a sweat. Issei said as Aika smirked. Yeah. Aika called, unaware that Issei just called her the weakest member of the brood. Anyway, the researchers who were cursed were all dirty middle-aged men, so your theory does hold some merit. Nishira said as Issei nodded. Odded middle-aged men don't get to touch. Issei said in a joke as he was ready to fight. Okay then, let me examine it. Riaz said as she walked over to the coffin. Riaz looked at this as Issei saw what she was doing and quickly remembered a seal like the breast-looking one on the casket as he quickly realized what it was. Hey, be careful Riaz. Issei called as Riaz looked, but it was too late as her breasts touched the boob-looking circles as the sarcophagus began to glow a violet color as Issei sighed. Tried to warn you. Issei said as he pulled out his guns. But this should make things interesting. Issei said as Nishira was surprised by this. The coffin soon opened on its own as a violet smoke came out as Issei aimed his guns at it as he was prepared for whatever came out of it. What's going on? Aika asked as Issei glared. Trouble. Issei said as he was prepared for whatever foe that would come out. The brood and peerage approached the open coffin to reveal a mummy as Issei pointed his guns at it. Okay, wake up faker before I pop a bullet at your exposed eye. Issei glared as Aika looked. Oh, ease up Issei, it's a dead mummy, what can it do, possess one of us? Aika said as she had looked closely at the mummy before turning to Issei before said mummy's eye opened as Aika quickly went wide-eyed at this. What was that about being careful Aika? Issei asked as Aika's body began to spaz out as Riaz looked. What's wrong with her? Asia asked as Riaz glared. She's been possessed. Riaz said as soon a new voice was heard from Aika. Who roused me from slumber? A voice asked as Aika was as stiff as a board. Oh great, we lost Aika. Issei said as he did felt a tingle before Aika came in. By the looks of it he tried to possess me first, which means he needed the weakest of us as a host. Issei thought as he assumed the spirit had a plan of his own. Riaz here was the one who woke you up asshole, so let Aika go or I'm popping a bullet into your corpse. Issei said pointing Ebony at the corpse. Do that and you'll never get her back as, I'll make her body my permanent body. He said a bit taken back as he glared at Issei, no doubt ticked he didn't get a male's body. Issei, calm down, your gun-blazing strategy will be suicide in unknown grounds. Riaz said as she saw Issei was onto a possible foul play from the mummy. Now then, nice to meet you mummy man, I apologize for my co-worker's abrupt behavior. Riaz greeted as Issei put his guns in their holsters. The possessed girl smiled with an evil and perverted smile merged into one as Issei saw this. My name is Anas. As a noble priest, I perform ceremonial magic. He called, striking a pose as Issei's eye twitched at this. I must thank you for waking me. Anas called as Issei glared. So you forced your mind into my trickster's head and took over, what Kiba here wasn't good enough for you? Issei taunted as he pointed to Kiba. Hey. Kiba called as Issei snickered at that. But you have some major balls there even if you don't have them in that body. Issei taunted as he looked to Anas. Now then you'll get out of Aika and back into your sleeping body before I go postal on your ass. Issei said as rebellion appeared on his back ready to fight. Leave her, I won't be able to hold my friend here back. Riaz said as her Nephilim shard resonated with her provisional fiancés. I am afraid I can't abide by either of your requests. Anas said as Issei glared as he cocked his guns ready to go postal like promised. Issei, wait. Riaz said as she glared. Why is that mummy man? Riaz asked as she needed answers as Madame soon spoke within her. Careful with his words Riaz, I fear he may try to one-up us. Though Egyptian magical powers is not my strong suit, but I do recognize some other form of magic upon this seal. Just cater and stall him till I can figure it out. Madame said as she knew the magic from the seal here, just needed to remember where. I would withdraw if my soul could rest in peace upon returning to this cursed body, but alas I cannot. Unass called out as Issei was getting real annoyed by this guy. So lady bits instead of your male bits or having a cursed body, tough call there. Issei taunted, but he saw the obvious choice there was. It's kind of pathetic a sorcerer would get cursed so easily. Akena looked as Cadis smirked. That I can agree with you on. Cadis said as she cracked her knuckles with Ifrit on her arms ready for use. Silence. It happened when I attempted to summon a high-ranking demon to advance my sorcery. Unass called as Issei snickered, especially after the over-the-top movements Unass was doing with Aika's body. Well, you had it coming, don't go making deals with devils, they tend to stab you in the back. Issei said as Riaz glared. Shush. Riaz called as Issei simply shrugged. Now do you know who this high-ranking devil was? Riaz asked as Madama paid close attention. You'll be surprised when you hear this. It was a female relative of Grand Duke Aguirre's. Unass called as Madama swore she heard of this before. Wait, why do I feel like I heard this story before? Madama wondered as she saw that something didn't add up, as she knew this female relative who was pissed off at one point over something, grumbling about perverted men and their sorry excuses for magic. But before I could even negotiate, that demon sealed away my body with most of my powers. Thus I had no choice but to enter a long slumber. He called as Issei sighed, seeing the guy use Aika's body like a meat puppet. Yeah, I knew a few of them, and they don't act out like that without a good reason. Issei as he saw Unass get slightly nervous with Aika's body. He's definitely hiding something. Issei thought as Riaz and Madama Butterfly no doubt knew so as well. As long as I'm under the curse, I won't return this body. He said as Issei smirked. I can still shoot his body and cut off the head for good measure. Issei said as Riaz glared as Unass was scared at that. Issei, let's just help this guy break the curse and then we can figure out what to do next. Riaz said as Madama knew they needed to buy time for her to figure out who this relative was. Insert High School DxDxAxN 20. Itsuki Shikuakai beautiful red. Pine went through a lot of trouble to bring Aika into the brood, so I won't be losing her here. Issei said as he put his guns away. Okay mummy guy, start telling us how to break the curse, I have a rep to keep after all. Issei called as he pointed at Unass. Of course I'll assist with this, after all Issei here is my fiancé after all. Riaz said as she had to keep their rep going against punks like this guy. Very well then, I shall rely on you two, white-haired hunter and red-haired lady. Unass said as he saw Issei was clearly a hunter of the occult. So what do I specifically have to do exactly? Riaz asked as Issei smirked. There are exactly 3 curses on me. Unass said as he held up 3 of Aika's fingers. The power of a beautiful demon is necessary to lift it. Unass said as he rummaged through his prison as a seal appeared on the inside of the lid. Take this. He called before pulling out an outfit as Issei was wide-eyed and smiling at it, picturing Riaz in it. Put on this costume and dance before me. Unass called out, holding a revealing belly dancer outfit as Riaz was mentally screaming that Nevan was haunting her. Jackpot. Issei called with his thumbs up and a perverted look on his face. Very well. Riaz said with a frustrated yet bored look as she was mentally keeping her temper in check after dealing with Nevan earlier. I just need to put that on and dance, yes? Riaz asked as Unass nodded as Kaneko saw something was fishy here. Okay no problem, but we, as in Riaz, get to keep the outfit. Issei said as Riaz glared. Not until the wedding day. Riaz growled as she had to admit Issei was adorable when he was a flirt. At least he wasn't as bad as Riser, though major improvement there. Very well deal. Unass said as he did not want to be shot for rejecting Issei's demand. Okay let's get started then. Issei said. Riaz took the outfit. And asked. Later, Riaz was now dressed in a belly dancer outfit that was more revealing than anything as Issei was cheering at this with the music playing. Riaz had a spotlight of pink on her as behind her was an Egyptian wall as Issei was cheering. Hell yeah. Issei called as he had thumbs up and a grin on his face. As Riaz danced, her breasts bounced around as the gold bra didn't do much to keep them steady, as it even jingled from the ornaments on the outfit as Issei needed to add this to Riaz's wardrobe. Kaneko glared at this scene as she knew something was up as Cadis and Murayama bumped her as they showed Issei was also aware something fishy was going on but was just riding it through. You have a great taste in a fiancé. Unass called as he and Issei were enjoying the show, as no doubt Aika was also enjoying it. Later, the first curse was broken as the part of the seal came undone as Issei saw it really was a 3-set seal. That's the crest of Grand Duke Aguirre's, alright. Riaz said as she was still in the belly outfit as she may have plans for its uses later as Issei looked. Okay Unass, 1 curse was broken, what about the other 2? Issei asked as he looked to Unass. Lifting the next curse requires the kiss of a female demon. Unass said as Issei looked to the females in the room. Okay, here's how we will decide this, ladies, last one to say not it has to kiss Aika's body. Issei called as everyone looked. Nodded. The females all cried out at once as Issei looked. Oh, and it doesn't have to be lip on lip, so let's try again. Issei said as Kiba looked. Let me. Kiba said before taking out straws. Shortest straw does the kiss. Kiba said as the girls each took a straw as Kaneko had the shortest. Damn it. She cursed as she then sighed. Okay, move along, kitty cat. Issei said as Kaneko glared. I hate you. Kaneko growled as Issei smirked. Yeah, and you're about to hate me even more. Issei said before pushing Kaneko to Aika's body hard as Kaneko ended up planting a kiss on Aika's cheeks as this caused the second seal to break. Okay, one more seal to go, so what is it this time? Panty raid, porn shots, or maybe outright sex? Issei teased as the ladies of the room growled at Issei's perverted nature. The final curse will be the most difficult to release. Anas said as Issei looked. Well, what is it I don't have all day? Issei said as he was ready for some gun-slinging action with sword play. Basically he began before pointing at Akeno. I must motorboat a girl with huge breasts. Anas called as Kiba soon got a nosebleed at the thought of Aika rubbing her head into Akeno's chest. Okay, then time to have Aika rub up on Akeno's chest and start the fun. Issei said as when the word fun was mentioned all bets were off. Aika roared out and grabbed Akeno's boobs and shoved her face straight into it as Akeno moaned out in surprise. Our little Aika-chan is very bold today. Akeno called as Issei looked. Everyone take cover. Issei called as the evil force left Aika and returned to the mummy's body, and soon an explosion hit, creating a hole into the main exhibit room. Issei got up as he looked around and saw Ravel, Aika, and Asia were down, but Riaz, Murayama, and Caddis were in one piece, but the down three were coming too. Soon the evil laugh was heard as Issei glared at it as Issei looked to Riaz. Hey, Riaz, time to suit up. Issei said as Riaz then smirked and grabbed the outfit she was wearing before removing it in one pull, as soon her hair grew around her body forming her witch battle outfit. I'm the great sorcerer, Anas. I have now revived. Anas called out as Ravel looked shocked just as a bullet nearly hit Anas, surprising him. And Sir Devil May Cry and I'm OSTMC acoustic version. About goddamn time you showed your true colors. Issei called as he pointed the ebony at Anas. Issei, you knew this would happen, didn't you? Ravel called as Issei smirked. Hell yeah, I did. This punk-ass sorcerer wannabe is going to get what's coming to him. Issei said as he held ebony and ivory. Good, we're on the same page then. Ria said as she stood next to Issei. Hey, old timer. This mummy is very dangerous, so we need to put him down for a dirt nap. Issei said as he held ebony and ivory while Riaz held the elven knights. It's a major waste, but we have no option. The old professor called as Issei nodded. Okay, we'll leave the coffin intact though, but Dumbus Anas is going down. Issei said as he glared at Anas. Yes, remember you dealt with a devil and didn't win, so what hope do you have at taking on the offspring of angels and devils? Riaz asked as Anas was caught off guard by that last one. Now then, Issei began as Riaz and Issei stood back to back in a battle stance. Let's rock. They called as Drake was soon heard. Boost. Take this. Anas called as he sent his wrappings at the ladies as Issei and Riaz smirked as they charged forward as Asia took out her staff weapon and switched to its demon form skeith and began slicing at the wrappings. Eat this. Aika called as she summoned an arm blade and began slashing at the wrappings. Burn up. Ravel called out as she sent her phoenix fires at the wrappings before Caddis jumped up and sent a Pegasus shockwave at the wrappings before punching down with Ifrit, creating a dome of flame. Murayama, of course with her Alistair, began making quick work of these foes as soon as Issei and Riaz were heard. Riaz charged forward as she used her wicked weave to tear apart the wrappings as she then jumped over Anas as she had her legs spread open and her guns pointed from between her crotch area at Anas. I didn't say you could touch. Riaz said as she then began firing at Anas, who Riaz then switched to Suzaku and began firing her phoenix arrows at Anas as Issei slashed at him with rebellion, giving Riaz time to fire the exploding fire arrows. The two Nephilim began showing Anas he fucked with the wrong group as Caddis roared out and sent her punches and kicks at Anas, with Ravel providing extra firepower to Ifrit, while Asia and Aika went at Anas together as they did some tag team combat as Asia was using staff combat, followed by scythe combat, and finally shield hand-to-hand combat as the brood was easily overwhelming Anas. Soon Anas roared out as his wrapping pulled a sneak attack move as they surrounded the girls as Riaz quickly used witch time to avoid it, but her peerage females and Issei's brood were not so lucky. Shit. Issei cursed as he saw they were all wrapped up. Hey ladies, it's time for a dress break. Issei called as drag already began. Explosion. So sorry about this. Issei called as he then slapped the girls on the breasts, hips, and rears as Issei soon landed behind them. Dress break. Issei called out, snapping his fingers, causing Asia, Murayama, Caddis, Aika, Ravel, Akeno, and Kaneko to be made naked as their clothing burst out, leaving them naked. Hamasho and Hunt smoking. Issei called as he quickly avoided a kick from Kaneko. Damn, I missed. Kaneko said as she was trying to cover her decency. And asked, "Let's me finish this pathetic excuse for a fifth-rate sorcerer Issei. I have a trick perfect for him." Ria said as Issei smirked. "Alright, go ahead with the torture attack." Issei called as Ria smirked as Unas was scared. "Torture attack?" Unas said, very fearfully worried for his own safety. Insert Bayonetta 2 asked. "Fly me to the moon climax mix." Rias did a small dance as she invoked the spell as Unas soon looked behind him as he saw a demonic Iron Maiden appear as Rias soon charged at Unas and kicked him into it as Unas stabbed into the back of the Iron Maiden. Soon Akeno flew in and stood next to Rias and smiled. "Let's end this." Rias said as she began charging her ruined power into the Elven Knights as Akeno began to build up her thunder as well. "Well, earn your stripes, ladies." Issei called as Rias then jumped up. "Go to hell." Rias called at Unas, who was screaming in pain as she soon fired bullets from all 4 of her guns as the ruined power made them look like a large blast as Akeno hit Unas with her thunder, which made the Iron Maiden become electrically charged. In the end, Unas was no more as the Iron Maiden vanished back into limbo where it was summoned from with Unas' dead corpse inside it. Scene break. Devil May Cry office building. "And this is a good call," Rodin said as he looked over the pictures Asia had taken of the event. "I got some old buddies in the other parts of the world. If Unas was from Egypt, then we will need to learn more about the other pantheons and such to build a counter-strike if need be," Rodin said as Issei nodded. "Alright, thanks Rodin," Issei said as Rodin nodded. "Well, that was fun," Issei said as the brood were all gathered here. "Harry, as where's the others?" Issei asked as Rias looked. "Don't worry, they left to take care of things for me." Ria said as Caddis, Murayama, Asia and Aika were helping Ravel learn the things she needs to learn about her new existence as a Nephilim. "Yeah," Issei said as he saw it was late. "Hey Issei, come with me." Ria said as she then grabbed Issei by his arm and took him to a portal. "Wait, Rias, where are we going?" Issei asked as the two soon vanished. "In the lap dance room of Nevin's club. Beginning a lime, I repeat, beginning a lime." Issei arrived and found Rias was now in the belly dance outfit as Issei was wide-eyed at this. "I just figured we can try and get to know each other better seeing as we are basically engaged now," Ria said as she looked to Issei. "Issei, I owe you a whole lot, so let's get to know each other before we get physical," Ria said as Issei was wide-eyed. "How did you?" Issei asked as Ria smiled as she walked around Issei and graced her hand across the chair and Issei's shoulder. "Your relatives from Sparda's peerage and Eva Saints know a lot of your dirty secrets," Ria said as she stood over Issei's lap and sat on it as she put her hands to his shoulders. "Then bring it on, babe," Issei said as he could take what Rias would ditch out. Rias began to swing her legs back and forth with her body as she made sure Issei's face was in her breasts as Issei groped them a bit as Rias made sure Issei didn't get anything inserted. "Wow, Rias, I didn't know you were so kinky. Maybe you and Issei are a perfect match," Ladama said from within Rias as Rias ignored her as she took Issei's hands and guided them to her rear end as she did the lap dance for him. Issei smiled and smirked as Rias found her face growing hot and closer to Issei's as the two were Nephilim and oddly drawn to each other naturally. Rias kept the lap dance going as she was getting very horny right now as she wanted Issei, she wanted him, but she had to wait it out as she knew the Nephilim were still a major unknown to them all. Rias then just resigned to this little lap dance as she was glad no one in her peerage or Issei's brood will ever learn of this. But right now Issei will be hers first, and if the others have a problem, well, they can give their complaints to the business end of her guns, all 4 of them. Then short lime here. Scene break. Kisk that evening. Fortuna. Kisk was taking his leave of Fortuna as he had gathered the information he needed for now. The moon was full as Kisk dealt with many foes, and most of them, both Stray Devil and Order of the Sword, were seeking the same thing as them. As Kisk walked, he stopped and looked back for a bit as Albion looked. "Regrets, Kisk?" Albion asked as Kisk smirked. "Perhaps an opinion on this Order of the Sword?" Albion asked as Kisk smirked. "Well, I can't exactly call them misguided, Albion," Kisk said before he began to walk off to meet up with his brood at the docks as with him was young girl with a hoodie and a sketch pad with a spray paint bottle on her person. "But soon they shall know this Nephilim's power. A power greater than they can ever imagine, the power of a son of Sparda," Kisk said as he walked. "Come along now, Cat," Kisk said as Cat nodded and followed after her new boss as she was now sporting an earring with a Nephilim shard hanging on it. As Kisk walked away, his shadow formed into that of some sort of beast under the moon's light. It wasn't an angel nor was it a demon, but it was something in between, the true form a Nephilim at the peak of strength shall take, the unification of all. End of the here. So that's it for today's video, guys. Before you go, just like the video and share it with your friends. Bye.